Hello there, hello, and welcome to This Week in WordPress once more. Episode, I believe this is 150 or something. I'm not entirely sure, but let's say it's 150. As always, joined with a nice, fresh-faced panel of people. We were just commenting before the show began how ill-prepared, fresh-faced we all believe we look. But here we are. Paul Lacey's got an interesting look. He's got his glasses positioned on his forehead. That's nice.
Yeah, looked like some kind of World War II fighter pilot, I think.
Oh,
That's
I
the look
see.
I was going for today.
Okay,
yeah.
Biggles. That was the look, was it? Okay.
But a baseball playing fighter pilot.
Okay.
From the night. Yeah.
I like it.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, whoever you are in the comments, for saying congratulations for getting to episode 150. I appreciate that, whoever you are. Let's do the introductions first, though, properly. So over on my that side is Paul Lacey. How are you doing, Paul?
Doing good, thank you. Doing good, and looking forward to today. We've got some really good discussion points today, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff around change.
Yeah.
In the whole environment we all work in. So some good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, and we're also joined by Christina Hawkins. How are you doing, Christina?
I'm good. I'm in Houston and it's snowing, so we're all about freaking out about now.
I actually saw that. That was so significant a thing that it was in my news feed on the BBC today.
It's
so that news
snowing. It's an inch of snow outside my window.
Yeah,
I mean, the last time it snowed was 15 years ago.
Wow,
and it was a dust.
Okay,
so we
that is a big deal.
We shut the schools down. There's like that much snow. We shut the schools down.
Yeah, stay inside, stay warm, and let's talk about WordPress. And then finally over there we have Bernhard Gronau. How you doing?
Fine.
Very good.
No snow here.
No, really? Sun. Austria?
Yeah, a little bit of snow, but in the south of Austria or east, not south. Oh, crazy. In the east of Austria, we had a little bit of snow, but it's melted, and now it's cold again, but cold without snow, so just a tiny little bit. But if you go to the south of Austria, like Carinthia or other areas, or Tyrol, then you have lots of snow.
Okay. Well, we have snow. I had a lovely large snowball fight with my children yesterday, and I got absolutely schooled in how to do snowballing. A couple of things just before we begin. Head over to these pages. I presume you are either on one of these pages or certainly somewhere else. wpbuilds.com/live. You can comment over there using YouTube comments. So you need to be logged in with a Google account, but wpbuilds.com/live enables you to do that. And then if you want to comment and you're logged into Facebook and you're in our Facebook group, go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and that will take you to our group, and you can comment there. And we always appreciate it when people do. We'll try to put as many of those on as we can. But we are going to be talking about the news in the WordPress space for the last week, which commenced on the 8th of February, 2020. And I'll share my screen so that you can see exactly what's going on. Didn't mean to show that one first. Let's go for this one. Yeah, we got snuck in the pod screen first. This is our website. We're wpbuilds.com. Over here, we produce a load of WordPress content each week. Primarily what you're listening to now, which is This Week in WordPress. We produce this. We do it live on a Monday. And so obviously, if you're watching that, you knew that already. But if you're listening to the replay, that goes out on a Tuesday. We make it into an audio podcast episode, but we also put the video on YouTube so you can watch it at your leisure. We produce a podcast, a normal podcast with interviews and so on. That comes out on a Thursday at 1 p.m. UK time. And you can find all of that by going to our archives section here, archives menu item. We've got a subscribe page if you want to keep in touch with what we do. Go to this page, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. You can find different email lists to sign up to for different kinds of things, but also RSS feeds for podcast players and links to our Facebook group and so on and so forth. And then finally, I always mention this week because it gets a lot of use, and I think it's actually quite useful for people, wpbuilds.com/deals. We've got a ton of permanently there. None of these have ever been taken down deals in the WordPress space. So if you're looking for something this week, go and check it out, wpbuilds.com/deals. Okay, we'll get stuck into it properly this week, and we're going to start with quite a nice piece of news, or at least I think it's quite a nice piece of news. This is over on WP Tavern. Sarah Gooding writes an article entitled WordPress passes 40% market share of Alexa top 10 million website. I mean, good grief. I remember when this was 20 something. I think when I joined WordPress, we were in the late 20s. Mm-hmm. Now we're up to 40%. The growth doesn't seem to be slowing down. I don't know if COVID has anything to do with the rapid increase, because it went from, I think it was 35 or something like that at the start of the year. Oh, here we go, right at the top of the article. 35.4% this time last year, basically. So seen at roughly a 5% increase. And what's really interesting is, obviously there's that top line number, which is based upon the top 10 million websites. And they, in the article, they go to describe why they use that mechanism, just because there are millions of websites which are just junk. You know, they literally are there for domain squatting and nonsense. And if you included those, it would obviously skew the figures slightly. But this is the bit that fascinates me. Among the top 1,000 websites, so trim that list by a factor of 1,000, and it's closer to 52%, which is just nuts. And it captures 66% for new sites. So basically, if there's a site redesign going on in the top 1,000, there's a 2 in 3 chance that they'll decide to go and use WordPress. They'll migrate over to WordPress, which is absolutely mind-bending. Now, constantly hearing chatter about Squarespace and Wix and all of these kind of platforms, but articles like this just give me real confidence that I'm in the right place at the right time. Anybody want to take this one on?
I just look at it like, everyone's always scared with referring Wix and Squarespace and some of these other tools. Like, oh my God, if we start pumping up these other tools, no one's going to want to use WordPress. Or, I'm like, that is not a problem at all. It's just, in fact, just last week, I had somebody come to like, it'd be probably better if you went over to Squarespace and build something yourself. And when you're done, a couple of years later, come on over. We'll get you work up right, because they just don't have a budget. And I'm like, just go to some of these other places, whip it up yourself, go to WordPress.com and do it too as well. Yeah. But I just, I think it just dispels that notion that WordPress isn't the right tool or it's going away, or I'm like, no, it's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way.
Yeah.
Davinder posted today in his Facebook group, when you are going to stop using WordPress? I just answered no. Not now, until I stop. I mean, you never know what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like maybe there comes a contender, maybe there comes a different solution. I think it's fairly easy to get started with WordPress, and people know about it, so they ask about it. So it's like a little bit of self-inducing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how long that will last. But it's fairly easy, I guess, to get started. And meanwhile, we have great tools like Gutenberg, even if I don't like it. But for somebody just starting out, it's maybe easier than ever to get at least okay-looking content sites with Gutenberg.
The thing that I'm showing on the screen is, I think, something of interest, though, because it's always good not to be too, resting on your laurels, because here we can see it says in January, Squarespace overtook Drupal and Wix. I come from Drupal, and when I moved away from Drupal, it wasn't because it didn't offer me things. It was just because I wanted a change and I wanted something which was a little bit more widely adopted. But at the time, it wasn't stagnating. But now, if you look at it, we've now got, Drupal has been eclipsed and has dropped into, I believe it's probably 4th place.
Yeah.
With only 2.5%, I believe it is, market share, which is, if you're in that community, things must feel a little bit different to how they feel to us at the moment.
But think about it, 4.2% of 10 million sites.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
It's still a lot. And still a huge user base, so don't underestimate it.
No, that's true.
Well, and I run the Houston WordPress meetup here, and I must get about 2 or 3 a week of new members. I mean, we're and it just shows me that the community just keeps growing, because I think they see the support as well. So there's over 2,500. I haven't checked in a while, but they see that number of people, and they feel like if I go down the WordPress path, I know I'll have somebody to help me. It's not hard. You'll trip over somebody, and it's just easier to find somebody rather than Drupal and Joomla, which I did a couple Drupal sites, but the problem for me was I couldn't find a developer that I could, if that person couldn't do it, I come over here to another Drupal. so not the case with WordPress. So I think people see this building community, and it's free, and there's an entire meetup group of WordPress users, and they just join a hey, I can't figure this out. How do I do this thing? And there's always somebody just jumping in to help for you. So I think that's just part of that growth that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you get fairly cheap support with WordPress. So because there are so many people, it's like kind of an advantage and a disadvantage that you get so many people at very low price points doing some stuff. Sometimes unbelievable how people work or what tools they are using. If you get a client which, I don't know, outdated software, Visual Composer and stuff like that. So it's not only a good thing sometimes.
Oh, I see. Yeah. yes. Paul, any thoughts on that, or do you want to segue us into the next piece we've got lined up?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting as well is that the stats, the 40%, is of all websites that they monitor, and that basically something like 30% of those don't have a content management system that they track. So they might have a content management system, it might be a custom-made one or something like that. If you actually look at the market share of all of those websites that WordPress has, and only include websites that are powered by a content management system of some kind, WordPress is up there at 64.3% at the moment, which is absolutely insane numbers. Going back to the 40%, looking at some of the other systems as well, you've got WordPress at 40%, has got a steady growth curve. Shopify has got a pretty steep growth curve at 3.3%. Still a huge amount of people. Then you got Joomla, which has been on a steady downwards trend over the last few years. Squarespace has been more or less flatlining. It's not really growing that much, not really. Although I guess it's growing in a way that there are more websites. But its market share isn't necessarily growing. Wix is growing a little bit. Drupal is going down. And then some of the ones that have got very steep growth curves at the moment, but are right down in the 0.3 percentages, are the kind of semi-SaaS offerings, BigCommerce and Webflow. So you can see that if you take the open source systems, some of the old classics, Drupal and Joomla, are definitely on the down. Some of the SaaS offerings are on a steady rise. Shopify seems to be one of the biggest competitors to WordPress at the moment. So I guess that's WooCommerce versus Shopify in a way.
Yeah, WooCommerce all by itself accounts for a massive proportion compared to any other CMS. It's a bit ridiculous, really. You've got WooCommerce can be counted separately and still is in basically second place to WordPress, which is just bonkers. It just makes me feel really like I'm in the right place, almost to the point where, in the UK, we don't call them vacuum cleaners, we call them hoovers, because it's just called a hoover because I guess at some point that manufacturer was the one.
Kleenex.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like in Austria, duct tape. Something is like called Tixo because it was the first huge brand,
right? And
everybody just tells it that way.
Well, we have the same thing. We have a local sort of. I mean, we haven't done it for over 18 months because of COVID, but we have a local meetup where people who are in businesses in technology in the local area meet up, and it's always surprising to me how many times people call it my WordPress. They don't call it my website; they just call it my WordPress. And I always thought that was quite interesting. But it's on the increase. I guess at some point it's got to flatline. You can't have 100%, but we are heading towards it.
I wonder if they count Classic Press as WordPress.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's a good point. Yeah,
I think but I think I like to know. I like to say when you do get some folks that come back and say, I don't know if I should do this on WordPress, because they think of them as smaller sites, right? I think now we can start showing sites that like Vogue and some of these very larger sites that use WordPress, like it can handle anything. Like people, I think, still have this idea that it's a blogging page builder kind of thing. Like, no, you can build some pretty incredible things with WordPress, and just that old mentality of what it used to be I think it's still there, but I think it's because we're at 60%, or not 60%, but 50% now. It's just pretty crazy. So, and just being able to show these other sites that the capability of would be great.
The Cameron Jones in the comment making the point that, yeah, exactly the one that Bernhard made, that potentially Classic Press is 50% of all of the sites that we're talking about. So it's still WordPress. But let's move on, because we've got more stories to talk about. Let's go, Paul. Paul Lacey is going to take on this one, which is from GoDaddy.
Yeah, we've got an article on WordPress Tavern from Justin Tadlock, and the article is entitled GoDaddy Launches the Hub, a new site project, and a client management experience for web professionals. So back in 2016 or 2015, I think it was, GoDaddy bought out one of the most popular WordPress panel systems, which was Managed WP, which is the one I use still at the moment, to be honest. And so to put this in context, if anyone doesn't know, this kind of panel that GoDaddy has launched or kind of relaunched is a system whereby, let's say you manage a number of websites, you can use the system to manage all your plugin updates, check for uptime, do backups, duplicate sites, do things like staging stuff, that kind of thing, and manage all that in one central place. So a lot of people who run agencies or freelancers who've got multiple sites under their wing use a system like this. I use Managed WP. So they've relaunched it now. It's called The Hub by GoDaddy, and it's just got a new, fresh design. You can still use the old one if you're using their old hub. And what's interesting in the article is that Justin says that he was very much expecting to see call to actions all over the place for every single kind of product that GoDaddy's selling right now. But he said he was quite pleased that he could not find within the system any upsells whatsoever to try and get you to start buying domains or buy hosting, all of these kind of things. It was a very clean experience, and if you can see the design on the screen, if you're watching this at the moment, you'll probably notice that it looks like it's taking influence from the whole Gutenberg block editor white style, same icons, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting launch. A lot of people, as usual with GoDaddy, will always remember the bad old days, and I think GoDaddy's company is clearly trying to do things to do better stuff in the community and improve its reputation. But it's a massive company. It's a massive company with masses of customers. So it only takes one person on social media to have a bad experience out of the millions of customers they've got, and their bad news story about GoDaddy support will always keep getting reinforced. But they've launched this new product. Apparently it's totally free, but I think there is some premium aspects in there. So let's say you get some, a free backup per month for 3 months, for instance. You can probably change that to a daily backup or a by the minute backup. But it's worth taking a look if you're not already using something. I think that this is more a thing for existing GoDaddy users to be using, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's not like a brand new product, is it? We've seen this kind of thing all over the place. There's lots of different ways.
It's like a new skin on their already existing product. Yeah.
I think the point that you made about their legacy is a tough one. I've got no point where I've consumed GoDaddy things particularly, so I don't have a negative experience, but it would appear that a lot of people going back into the past have got things that they want to air as grievances. Adam Warner, who was being interviewed for this post, he joined GoDaddy to lead their sort of WordPress initiative in 2018. So, he doesn't have anything to answer for. In fact, lucky enough to meet Adam at WordPress WordCamp in Europe, and just really thoroughly decent guy, seems to be taking the ship in the right direction. And this just seems like a sensible tool to have if you're a hosting company of that magnitude in the WordPress space and you want to push the pro initiative that they've got. You need a tool like this, and so now it exists. Looks like a decent offering if you've bundled a whole load of GoDaddy products already.
They've got managed hosting stuff now, haven't they? I think so. All of those things. If the ecosystem works for you, then it's great. It's doing what you need. It's whether or not you've got any problems. And I'm sure that out of the millions of users, there's millions that don't have any problems with GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christina, I interrupted you there.
Oh, no,
now
it's
you're
fine.
covered up with Beth.
No, that's all good. Yeah, I used Managed WP for years. I didn't really have any problems when they switched over. My only concern with it, and it still is, it looks like it's a new skin, but I'm just waiting. Like, it's like they halted production to improve anything. Like, it's the same Managed WP that it was 3 years ago, and I don't, on my end, I don't see any enhancements on what we've been using. So that's only that's my issue at this point. It's like I don't use the performance tool because that doesn't do me any good. I don't use the uptime.
Gives you pretty bad scores, doesn't it?
Bad scores.
The tool in Managed WP makes
it
the
doesn't
sites
give me
look
any
awful.
information. Yeah, it's nothing that I can use, and it scares my clients because they're like, "Oh my god, I got enough." I'm like, "Just stop. Look at the scores." I don't even use it. I take it off. I take it off the report. And then there's the uptime. I don't use that one. I mean, there's just certain features on there I just don't use because it just doesn't do anything for me as a developer. And I manage 135 websites now, and they're all on Managed WP. And so I just don't see enhancement. The skinning is great, but the issues I have are way bigger and more in depth, especially when it came to, I noticed that all of my client information, whether none of them host with GoDaddy at this point, none of them are GoDaddy hosts, but they now have all of their name, their emails, all of their information is in that one system. So that kind of concerned me when I saw that, and lots of upsells. This just looks to me like a skin. It's just, they're putting lipstick on a pig at this point. And I'm just worried, like, hey, look what we did. It's all shiny and new now, but I'm waiting, like, I need the functionality. People are leaving from what I'm seeing in some of the Facebook groups is people are like, I've had it. The backups aren't working for me. And I get errors. We try and clone sites. And so when we clone them, it's like, hey, it's cloned. I'm like, I don't see anything. Nothing's happened. We clone it again. Nothing's happening. And so but then all of a sudden, an hour later, there it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What happened? And
that's the upsell. If you want an instant clone, you have to.
That's the premium, right?
You have to delayed clone.
Yeah. But then you go back to tech support. There's no chat, right? It's all through an email ticketing system, which is fine. I understand that. But at the same time, it takes them an hour, 2 hours to get back. Well, of course, an hour later, the site's up. They're like, I don't see a problem. Yeah. What's the problem?
And this, I think, is the problem that they face is that because they've got so many customers and they've been in business for so long, and they had really quirky approach to marketing a while back. For every comment thread that you read about GoDaddy, there's always somebody ready to hop in and offer the alternative. So I feel it's a really difficult one. It's actually interesting. I didn't know this, but Beth, who is in the comments, she writes, "I am a GoDaddy Pro ambassador, and the reputation thing is always hard. But it is," she says, "an excellent product." And then we've got a Facebook user. I should have said at the beginning, apologies, I didn't. If you wish to be anonymous, that's fine. But in Facebook, if you wish us to know who you are, you have to actually go in and click the StreamYard link, which is in the main thread, the copy for the post itself. Go and click the StreamYard link, and then you can authorize us to know who you are. But
Alex Kalinov. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex. Hello. Thanks for joining. He's currently using BlogVault, and he's been happy with that. But he also says GoDaddy showcased their WooCommerce hosting product at Woo London Meetup, which was really impressive. And for an onboarding tool for new users, it's by far the best in the industry at the moment. There you go. So there we go.
And that was Ronald from Yith who said that. So Ronald knows a lot about WooCommerce because he works for Yith themes. And I think GoDaddy have got a bit of a sweet deal from what I understand. There's Alex, he's sorted it out. I think GoDaddy have some kind of, I remember we covered it months ago, that they had this hosting package at GoDaddy where they'd made a deal with Automatic and you got a bunch of their premium products like memberships and subscriptions and some of the other plugins that were quite costly for free as part of this deal. And people were a bit upset because it was kind of not really fair that they, a huge company makes a deal with another huge company and there you go, you've got a bit of a monopoly or a kind of a price wall around some of these products. But I know that I imagine that deal for Automatic was probably interesting because you've got something like Shopify, which is onboarding experience is pretty good, and then you got WooCommerce, which is frightening if you've not done it before. And GoDaddy have managed to partner with Automatic, make an onboarding product that feels like you're almost buying something like Shopify, and it all works. It's just, I mean, I've got no experience with GoDaddy as well in terms of products, but just my constant hearing of the bad news stories, which it's just hard for them to shake, isn't it? I think when these companies grow so big, it's difficult to keep in touch with the community. Even if you've got someone like Andrew Warner, who is doing an amazing job, always at all the events, always at all the online events, happy to speak to someone one-to-one, anyone who'll make time for people. It's still like a huge company that is just constantly growing, and that growth is just so hard to manage your reputation at that point.
Yeah. That is a good segue, by the way, I feel, because the next piece, I'm sorry if anybody had anything to say about that, but I'm going to move on because it felt like the perfect moment, is this one. Now, I think probably this is an article that is going to interest a lot of people. I'm sure you've heard about this. We've got two pieces today. We've got the piece directly from Elementor themselves, and then maybe it'll be a point of discussion. We have Sarah Gooding's take over on WP Tavern as well. But let's start with the GoDaddy piece itself. You may or may not have heard this week that that Elementor have decided they're going to adjust their pricing. As with all these things, prices very rarely go down. They tend to go up. And obviously now Elementor are a huge force in the WordPress space. They've got probably more support tickets than almost any company in the WordPress space, perhaps aside from WordPress.com. And so they've revealed some new pricing. They say that they're in control of currently about 7 million websites, which just such a staggering number. And so on the screen at the moment, I'm presenting for you so that you can see what their new pricing plans are. I'll go through them because it might be interesting for you to know. They've got possibly some new names attached to them as well, but basically one website is going to be $49 per year. Nothing really much to see there. That's I think pretty much as it's always been. 3 websites for $99 a year. And here's where the changes begin, like of significance, I feel. The previous price point of $199 for 1,000 websites has now been changed to $199 for 25 websites. So at this point, I can hear the collective intake of breath as people think, well, hang on a minute, that's like 975 less. Well, hang on, wait a minute, because you can also get a different deal. It's 100 websites for $499, so that plan's completely new. And then they've got what their sort of flagship product, if you like, the agency is going in at basically $1,000, $999 for 1,000 websites. Now, the thing to sweeten this deal is that they're offering additional support. That seems to be where they're pitching this. So, obviously the number of sites has changed, but the key takeaway that they want to drive home is they've got this thing called VIP support, where you get 24/7 live chat. And reading through some of the article, some of the things that Ben Pines was saying over on the WP Tavern article, because they interviewed him, they were trying to make the point that, this support is supposed to be really a premium offering. You are if you write them an email and you're on the professional cost, the plans that I've just described, you're going to get a response within an hour or less. That seems to be what they're saying. I think I read 30 minutes. Maybe somebody can tell me that was nonsense or not. But, that's pretty amazing if they can pull that off. If you can write a support ticket and basically by the time, you've made a cup of coffee and come back to your computer, you should have an answer. Let's see how that goes. But can you imagine what the reaction of the community has been? Obviously, you've had some people who say, look, it's a business. They've got to make money. This is important for their growth. We want the product to be updated. It's got a whole ton of things which need to be worked on, improvements as well, fixes for bugs, lots of development work that needs to be done. So that's good because we'll get all that investment now. And then you can imagine the other side, the flip side to this is what? That's like 5 times as much money as I'm currently paying. Now,
well,
Go on. I'll just finish this little bit, and then you can all jump in. You've got until the 9th of March if you wish to sort of hop in on the current pricing. They're giving you more or less a full month to hop in, but the complication arises that it's not entirely clear how long that promise will last. In other words, if you buy in before the 9th of March, will the subsequent renewals of that be at the price that you paid before the 9th of March? And Ben Pines in the comments is careful to say, look, we cannot promise that for obvious reasons. You don't want to shoot your business in the foot and type something that somebody in a year's time can say, no, but you said this. Well, that's not the case. So it's a really interesting story. It's got a lot of people worked up, and go.
Well, I mean, to be honest, who is affected by that anyway? I mean, many users are for sure on the smaller plans because, I mean, come on, okay, maybe expert users, but I don't know, 1,000 sites, that must be huge agency using that. And they don't care, I guess. I mean, I don't know, there are for sure people that are affected, but I don't think it's that big of a deal for many out there. I don't know, because and if it improves their support, I'm all for it. I mean, I'm not an Elementor user. We have just to deal with Elementor users coming asking POTS questions, especially for everybody using POTS and Elementor. Yes, they have made a bug with the latest update. Just roll back and wait for them to fix it. So that's stuff that happens anytime over there. So they need more money to deal with support and product quality. I mean, let's see where the ride goes. I mean,
yeah. It's interesting actually. Some comments in our conversation here. So Alex is making the point that they haven't changed their pricing in probably since the launch. Yeah, I think the only pricing variation was when they went from unlimited to 1,000 sites at the 199 model, because I think some licenses were just getting hammered because it was literally unlimited. I think there was, sites keys were just being posted online and you could find it somewhere and it was totally legitimate to use it. So that wasn't really a pricing change. The only difference in pricing, I think, is they had a launch deal, didn't they? Right at the very start, where I think it was $49 for unlimited for a small amount of time, but that was just like a very, very, very early deal. So I think Alex is right. The pricing hasn't changed. And of course, the other thing which gets mentioned all the time, if you're managing 1,000 websites and you can't afford 1,000, then you're in the wrong business. It's interesting because this always gets said that way, doesn't it? But if you've gone, like, let's say you're in the position that you've got 100. Let's put the pricing back up because then I'll be able to do this properly. If you are in the position where you have 4 sites, that could be quite a big leap, but still, it's not a lot of money. I don't really have a problem with the money here. I think the problem in this article is communicating to your user base, many of whom maybe, it might be difficult to meet these new costs, but buy it before it the deal goes away on the
change starts at the expert level. Everything below that, there is no change.
Yeah.
So, because that's the regular user. That's just the everyday user there. Yeah.
And maybe they need support, but they can wait. It's an offering for people who are working professionally with it. And so $500 a year for up to 100 websites isn't cheap, and it depends on where you're living, because it's for American, it's okay. If you're from somewhere else, maybe it's very, very expensive. But you get the web support, you get all their other additional stuff. I think they starting with Studio or Expert, you are listed on their sites as a partner. Yep. So you get a little bit of it in return.
You get a bit of a backlink there. That's right. Yeah.
I always wonder why they don't offer sometimes licenses without any support. I mean, that's a funny thing which I almost never see in WordPress, and I don't know if it would work or not. But to be honest, I don't need support most of the times. And if I need it for most of the plugins, it's crappy anyway, because the questions that really need to be answered most of the time bugs or stuff like they have to fix, and that's not support anymore for me. That is keeping your product working or bug free. So I don't know if there's a documentation. I don't need somebody to explain. Oh, you need to go over there and activate it there, because that's stuff you can figure out yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. In a way, it'd be quite nice to have the essential or the advanced, which is 1 site and 3 sites. It'd be nice to be able to pay to get their VIP support, because it strikes me that potentially the inexperienced users are the people that are really going to need to get the answer, and it's going to be really frustrating to have to figure that out yourself, or join a Facebook community or a whatever to figure that out. That's quite an interesting pitch. But you are paying for seats as well. So if you're on the 199 plan, you now get premium support, which means an email. You've got a day response time. If you're on the $500 plan, 499, which is called Studio, you get 5 seats at their VIP support, which is chat, live chat within 5 minutes. 5 people. And then if you're on the agency one, the 999, you get up to 10 people. So you can see this fitting really nicely with sort of agencies and.
Well, and I look at it too. So like I mentioned, I have 130 websites that we manage. I don't use Elementor. So I'm looking at this like, holy crap, I'd have to upgrade to the $1,000 a year to get this to work for me. Now, on the flip side, though, I run a business. I do the same thing to my clients. I raise my rates. I raise my care plan rates based on what increased costs that I have. And I just say, hey, I've had a massive increase in costs. I got to raise my rates. And you just have to pass on that cost. And the clients usually they understand, I might lose 1 or 2, but usually now on the flip side, if they are not on a care plan for me, then I tell them, listen, you're going to be responsible for all these licenses. Because right now I pay for all the licenses on all these websites. And I added it up one time. It was almost $650. It could be $700 now per year for all of these websites. And so when I share my client, I'm like, listen, all the neat stuff that we do with your site that makes it easier for you to maintain and update, we use Beaver Builder. We just say, in a year's time, you're going to be responsible for this. And here's how much it's going to cost. Yeah. And they go, oh, I'll go on a care plan then.
Yeah. Actually, this works very well, doesn't it? We could, you could.
No, if you explain it well and you're just transparent about it, like this is my cost.
Yeah.
If you explain that to your clients, and they're usually pretty okay with it. Now, switch on over to Beaver Builder. You might not. Now, Beaver Builder better not do this. I don't know. I'm a little
That's right. Do as I do, not as I say, or the other way. Rick, hello, Rick.
People won't do it because there's an article going back from one of the founders, just shared recently, where he explains why he doesn't believe in limited whatever per websites. And in the end, if you're having sites in that amount, you can easily just don't add the license key and copy paste the plugin files. That's not rocket science, as long as they don't log features until you enter the key. But most of the time, with most of the WordPress plugins, copy paste. Thank you. So it's always a balance.
Yeah. Rick in the comments says in the email they received in which they announced this, they stated, if you're on an existing active subscription, nothing changes for you. If I read that correctly. Yeah, there were a few people that were concerned that there was no, and again, let me just put the article on the page. If you go to go to this one, which is the Elementor article written by Sarah Gooding on WP Tavern, there was concern that it doesn't mention what will happen in the future, and I'm struggling to find the paragraph. Elementor evangelist Ben Pines, head of the company's web creator program, and I'm quoting this, has left the question regarding renewals open. He's saying he cannot see into the future. Customers were left wondering whether the lack of clarity on the future of renewals is a foreshadowing of prices going up after the current billing year. And Ben said, no one can predict the future, and offering lifetime price guarantee is irresponsible for any future facing company. So, but they go out of their way to make the point that they've built up a lot of trust with their users over the years. And so,
but on the site itself there is written by Elementor that if you get the bigger plans now, agency plan, you get a 50% discount, which will stay on.
Yep.
So,
yeah, this is just a difficult messaging. It's just difficult to put this messaging out in the market. Imagine if your heating bill went up by 50 or 100% or something like that, you'd just be freaking out whether it was justified or not, and that's the problem. They've just got a difficult job trying to make everybody happy. Some people concerned more about the price than others. Maybe you're at the inflection point where you're going from one license to another, and like Christina said, it's just like suddenly, oof, ouch, and it may be that your business isn't tremendously profitable at the moment, in which case every penny counts. So,
But that goes back to what I'm saying. You have to look at your own business and your own cost structure. I don't believe that these guys do this because they're just greedy. I don't think that they raise prices just because they're like, hey, whoa, let's make some more money. I believe they probably looked at it and like, all right, to do this thing, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And so I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't just throw money and just decide, let's just make it this much money. I think there's probably some decisions in that. They looked at their cost structure. They looked at the support that they were having to do for their product, and like, we got to make a tough decision here, guys. And they know they'll probably lose some users, but they'll probably gain some because they'll look at they'll look at the structure, they'll look at the support, and they go, that's what I need.
The support, they've doubled their support team over the last year, and they're planning to double it again in the coming year.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And I think currently, last time I checked, I think they had 130 employees.
But on the flip side,
they're over 200
I'm like
now.
Bernhard.
Yeah.
I don't use Beaver Builder support. I rarely ever reach out to them for anything. So on the flip side, I'm thinking, why do you need so much support?
You can't compare the quality of the product with Beaver Builder. It's a completely different way of developing. They have more and faster releases. They have sometimes more fancy stuff. Mm-hmm. They target more the single user or the inexperienced user or more kind of web designer type. With all the drawbacks, faster development means more issues. They happen frequently, and that's not only because of the bigger user base, it's because of the way they work.
Okay, so from one company that's growing to another one, let's leave Elementor behind for this week. And
sorry, can I say one or two things
Paul,
on the Elementor thing? What I was going to say is that okay, let's move on to the one. I just there's a lot confusing about this whole story because there's so many different opinions and angles to come at it. My own opinion is they have to put the prices up, no doubt about it. And Ben Pines in that statement where he said, I can't comment on future price changes or renewal discounts is a highly responsible thing to say at this point because it's absolutely true. In Matt Medeiros' latest podcast, he pulled out a few figures. Elementor onboards something like 30,000 new users every day, I think it was. It's something absolutely insane. But that's probably a mix of premium people, or maybe it's new websites or something. It's an absolutely ridiculous. Maybe it's a month. I can't remember.
Either way,
the number was
not.
shocking in terms of when you see how many new people are under there, something to do with Elementor as customers or free users, one way or another, and that they've had to double their support team, and doubling their support team from say 40 to 80 or 50 to 100. It's still nowhere near enough to cope with that many people that are onboarding to that product every day. And a lot of people in the community have said, oh, well, they're so greedy. They got $15 million venture capital, etc. Honestly, I've worked in the .com boom where much more money was passed around than 15 million for things that really weren't up to much. And that 15 million, that'll get eaten up. If you took away the money they're making from the sales, that money won't go very far with a company with the kind of people they've got to employ and the product that they've got and the level of support and the growth. I know that Elementor are all about reducing friction for their users, right? They are obviously venture capital backed and they do need to make a lot of money. And gosh, they should make a lot of money because they've changed the game in a lot of situations. But they are committed to trying reducing friction for their customers. They've not always got it right. If you think how quickly they've grown and think back to GoDaddy, a company that grew super, super quick and now has a lifelong reputation problem. The last thing I'll say on this is that this could be a key moment for Elementor to do something of some kind of loyalty bonus to their existing fanatical user base, even if those customers part ways and go to Oxygen or go to Beaver Builder, that they part as friends. That's the most important thing to Elementor's reputation right now, that they don't have a bunch of people who were shouting from the rafters about how great this product was, doing the exact opposite for the rest of time. You see it on AppSumo all the time. A deal comes to AppSumo, $49, blah, 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 and then the mob piles in and says, we don't like the deal, we want a better deal. Ben Pines and Elementor at the moment are going, well, you've got a discount on the new VIP support, and everyone's like, I feel like we're getting downgraded on our support. They're probably not. They've got what's called premium support, and there's a level before that, and then there's a level above what the people who don't decide to pay anymore have got, called the VIP with the chat. This chat level support is new. That didn't exist before. Why should everyone get that for free? Why should they introduce something like that and people don't have to pay for it? They do have a trust issue going forward if they don't do something to address this. The community who is commenting on their blog does not think that enough is being done by Elementor to address this. They could make a big impact if they did something, some kind of gesture at this point, before they end up being worth 150 million or 200 million or whatever, just to keep that reputation friendly. That's all I've got to say. It's very difficult to figure it all out though, but they've got to do it. They've got to put the prices up.
It's obviously contentious, 339 responses to a blog post. It's quite, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And people concerned, they've built their business on it. They want to know what the future is. And interesting.
300 responses, right? Half of those are from Ben Pines. So you probably got about 150 people there. If they're onboarding 30,000 a day or a month, even, however it is, that amount of people angry is a drop in the ocean to the people when they're looking at the spreadsheet and the numbers. It's a drop in the ocean. Yeah. But those people are vocal.
Yeah.
So those are the people that will complain about this for life.
Yeah, they're the people who'll drop in the comments, as we were describing about GoDaddy earlier, 2
the
years
trolls
from now.
Ranting around.
Interesting. Thanks, Bernhard, for sharing that piece. We actually, Paul and I, before we had this conversation on the live, we did actually mention this about how Pippin Williamson from Sandhills Development, EDD and so on, he'd taken a decision to really radically change his pricing model in order to make it more cost effective for their business. They literally doubled, and in some cases more than doubled, I think, the price of their product, but had fewer customers, but had less support and the exact same revenue, if not more. So that was, really interesting. Okay, Elementor, we're done for this week. Shall we segue? This is you again, Paul. We're going to be talking about WP feedback. Well, it's not WP feedback anymore. It's gone.
Yep. So WP feedback, product by Vito Peleg, who's been on this show a number of times. He's always booking back in, isn't he, after he comes on? And good guy, Vito. A lot of us have met Vito, and he's got his product WP feedback, which is like a user design feedback tool. That's how it began anyway, although he's saying it's a lot more than that now. And at the beginning, what you could do is you can install this on your WordPress site, and let's say you had some clients, you could use it to ask your clients to say what they liked or didn't like, or what was working or not working. Or if you had a live website, you could use it to gather support requests, so that someone can point at the thing that's not working for them on the website, put a sticky note on that, and then the system communicates to you via email and within the system itself. So it's like a feedback tool, much like Project Huddle or InVision, I think, does a similar sort of thing. Now, this product started out as a pure WordPress plugin with a SaaS element that was largely invisible. So you did everything within the WordPress plugin side of things. Now, in a recent interview on WP Tonic, Vito was interviewed by Jonathan Denwood, and Vito was talking about that some of the customers that they were supporting had websites with over 200 plugins installed on them, and were wondering and thinking that a problem with WP feedback was related to WP feedback. And Vito was kind of talking about a lot of the growth problems with that they never expected that actually was a thing. It turned out it's quite a common thing, and how badly some websites are made. So they started this journey over to a SaaS product where they weren't reliant on the ever-changing WordPress ecosystem and the people in it that will pile on loads of products. They know now that if they're supporting someone, it's nothing to do with the plugins. It's a SaaS level product, and it's doing very little within the WordPress product. Now, what's interesting here is that this product has grown. They've grown a lot of users very quickly, not to the level that Elementor have, not to the level as GoDaddy have, because they never will, because it's much more niche product than that. But everyone who bought a lifetime deal or a deal with WP Feedbacks, and what I understand, has got the same deal just with the SaaS product now. So they've got a kind of upgrade in a way. So if you're a lifetime product owner with the plugin, you're a lifetime deal owner with WP Feedback. And it's easier for us to say, oh, look at that, Elementor. You should do the same. You should make sure that everyone's grandfathered in and got the best of the best and stuff like that. But it's a different level of growth. But good luck to Vito with the new SaaS product, Atarim, which apparently in Hebrew means websites.
Yeah, that's right.
And apparently there's a lot more functionality that this does than their original product does. And moving this to SaaS means that they can do all the things that they wanted to do in the future. Be interesting to see if the pricing changes for them in a year's time. But for now, everyone who was in, I think, is the same.
It strikes me as like I don't see a downside to putting this into SaaS at all. The heavy lifting that this plugin needed to do to make it useful, it feels like this is a bit of a no-brainer for their customers. And as you said, Paul, if he's just grandfathered everybody in, that's really nice. If you're on the screen, you can see the sort of dashboard that you'll get now. Beth, who I presume is a user of what was WP Feedback and is now Atarim. I'm sorry, Christina, your face has been covered over by Beth's temporarily. It says Vito wants the product to be the central communication and workflow app for WordPress, sitemap to wireframes to design feedback. Yeah, he's going for the full Monty. It just looks really nice. And I am sure that it will have him on at some point to explain how it all works and how it's put together. But nice to know that they're taking all that.
It would be great if they became a bit of a competitor to Manage WP. I don't, and not so much as like the full Monty, everything that they do, but it would, for me, as from a work process standpoint, to have one place where clients can leave comments, even on a live site. If they log into their back end and they go live, they can see and leave comments for us if we have to make updates and changes on a live site. Because right now for us, I don't know if anyone else does, it's all, I use Project Huddle, but it's on a separate site, and clients, before we go live, they can leave their comments like this. But it would be really great if on a live site, I just a plugin, but then I have something like this where it's tied in with my ticketing system somehow. So when they leave a comment, hey, I need to change this here, it creates a ticket on my end. But at the same time, if I could have a tool on here where I'm backing it up, maybe, like I said, not the full Managed WP, but a backup tool from here. So before the developer goes in and makes a change or something, it backs up, looks over some comments. We can delete comments while we're in there. I don't know, just something that would be really, really great on a live site from my client's perspective. I would look like a hero if they could just come into something and just make changes on a live site. Sorry, I keep
that's really interesting. And the fact that it had a particular name, WP Feedback really locks it into two different things, doesn't it? It's WordPress, WP, but it's feedback. And there's quite a lot of comments coming in about exactly what you've just said, Christina. It could go anywhere now that he's got a SaaS app which is just called website in Hebrew. It couldn't it? It could do all of those Managed WP related tasks, and it limited only by the team's imagination. So quite a lot of people using it in the comments. Sorry, Bernhard.
No, not really. I was just thinking about how many tools now want to have your site in their system linked with it. I don't know, Manage WP, or I don't know, self-hosted version of main WP, or Webpack using and updating your security stats, and this one and that. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I understand the move because you're more or less binding the customer to you. But on the other hand, especially in Europe with all this data privacy laws, many customers might not be really, everybody can log in to decide who got the connections from their service. So you move it to a single point of failure. If they have a hack, every site can be affected. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about all those moves to those centralized systems and giving away some part of the control. While I see the benefits, but that's one of the reasons I stuck with Project Huddle, which I can self-host, or think about moving to main VP because I can self-host it. Yes, it's more effort, but on the other hand, you have a little bit more control over some parts of it at least.
Yeah, I feel though, people like George in the comments is saying that he got the lifetime deal when it was on offer back in the day, as did Rick here. You've done quite well there, haven't you guys? Because this is definitely they're really up in their game, and you guys are all grandfathered in. You've got this, whether you're going to use it or not. It's interesting because Rick here says that he sort of he's gone to Project Huddle, but then further down he actually says, I like the look of this. This product looks pretty solid. So, it's going SaaS might have turned a few heads. And Sean saying, does Atari mean something in Hebrew? Games console would be my guess. But anybody else want to chip in on that, Paul?
No.
I think you mentioned the word grandfathered. This is one of those ongoing themes of, the commercial side of WordPress is changing so quickly and the core side of WordPress is changing so quickly. And from what I understand, Vito has grandfathered in those customers, so they do move smoothly over to the SaaS product. If we were to have new things like managed WP type functionality in there, would that still be something that the lifetime deal people would get? You would hope to think so, because compared to what the scale of growth could be if they did add some of these extra tools, you think that those couple of people would be worth keeping as loyal advocates of your product. But just to talk about an alternative, another tool called Opt-in Monster, which is like a pop-up tool. Yeah, so they've also done a similar thing recently where they've moved over to a SaaS-based model. And it used to be a WordPress product, and they've moved to a SaaS model, and they also had some lifetime deal owners as well. And if you check on Twitter or speak to a couple of people who had those deals, you'll see that they're very unhappy, probably even more unhappy than your Elementor users at the moment, because your Elementor users are just worried about what might happen in the future, and they're worried that they don't have this VIP support, yet they were the top tier before and they've got to pay more for that. Whereas the Opt-in Monster original kind of people who you would sort of say are those people that help put money into the company at the start to get it to do what it needed to do to actually to get it off the ground. Those lifetime deal users have not been grandfathered into the SaaS product. They've been offered a discount on the SaaS product, but essentially their lifetime deal for the product is over. And I know that a couple of people, I know there's someone who's watching today who was one of these people actually, contacted them, queried this concept of, lifetime. I paid this money, it said lifetime. Oh, no, it's moved to a SaaS thing, so it's a different product. And here's what the response was. It's in the terms and conditions on their website as well. At some point, Opt-in Monster's terms and conditions changed to say that at any point, if you use our product, you are agreeing with our current terms, and we can change the pricing at any point within the next 30 days notice. Now, that's pretty sketchy, I think is the best way. It has upset a lot of those founder members who will not be using any more of those companies' products anymore. And I think this is the thing that we've all got to be careful of, whether it's Atrium, sorry if I said that wrong.
Atrium.
Elementor, even Beaver Builder, or any commercial product within WordPress or Webs or SaaS or anything like that, is that the environment that we're all working in and the financial, the economy, everything is changing so much that we cannot assume that these companies can keep things the same as they are, and we cannot assume that morally they will see it from the same side that we do. So yeah, Ben Pines is saying we might change things in the future. And that, like I said, that's a responsible thing to do. because they might have to, just like Opt-in Monster have. But I think Opt-in Monster, they should have honored those couple of grandfathers customers. I can't imagine it's that many.
It's really interesting as well, though. Just by using the tool
every day.
Yeah. Just by using the tool, you are agreeing to the new terms. And we've all been there, right? You log into, I don't know, Google or something, and it says you've got to acknowledge the new terms and conditions. And there is literally no way you're going to read that because it's a waste of half of the morning. So you're just going to click OK and accept. But that's tough. I mean, if you bought something,
I think we've just got to be really careful with our stack. Let's go back a year or two, maybe. The last couple of years, up until maybe a year ago, it was very exciting to keep adding tools. This thing's coming out, it's this much money, and I can add that, I can make some money off that, and this is coming out, and this is coming out. I think now we've all got to realize that a bit of a economic bubble burst in WordPress, in a WordPress economy where everything was priced too low for starters. So moving forward, I think just anyone who's got an agency or freelancer, just be careful what you're buying. Don't have too much dependency on those companies because they can change their terms and you might not be happy with it, but you'll just have to suck it up.
Yep. Be careful. The wild, wild west, as Bernhard likes to say.
That's my term.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Copyright Bernhard Gronau, 2021. The next piece, though, is we're not really going to dwell on this, I don't think, are we, Paul? This is Birgit was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she's heavily involved with the core team and making full site editing something big and interesting and new for us to all get salivate about. And we've got a piece here that you just wanted to highlight, I think, really, more than anything else. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Isn't that a happy picture there? So Sean O'Neill says, after carefully choose your commercial products, he says, so Gutenberg then, which segues nicely onto this article. Thank you there, Sean. So the Gutenberg project, as much as it looks, quite frankly, a bit of a mess at the moment, especially with full site editing, I've looked at it myself. They've got a long, long way to go. I think they know it, but it's always going to be free. There's never going to be a license, and you could technically, if you wanted to, replace a lot of commercial tools that you pay for at the moment. So my understanding of this project changes, and my opinion on this project changes week by week, and it's really useful to get to talk to different people. One minute I'm having a rant about how ridiculous it is and it's never going to work. The next minute I'm like, this is our Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is our only hope against all the commercial products that can change their terms and conditions every single day. So the problem is, if you think Elementor have got problems with communication, the core team behind this really have got problems with communication, because if you want to talk to the people involved in this product, you've got to go into maybe a Slack group or something like that. You've got to be there omnipresent, because those comments will just keep popping up the page and you'll only get whatever's at the bottom there. But wouldn't it be awesome if this works and we really actually get it might be a year, it might be 2 years, it might be 3 years. What if we get a really awesome way of building websites out in WordPress that makes our websites fast? We're not reliant on lots and lots of different commercial plugins, accessible, and it works. That would be awesome. So it's a good time to start looking at this project, the full site editing, the Gutenberg project, and if you can, put some positive energy into it. Help the people doing it. Give them constructive feedback. And like I said, the problem is nobody knows really what's going on. Birgit here has done a great job of summarizing a lot of complicated, unintertwined conversations and trying to summarize where they're at this current point. So go and check it out on gutenbergtimes.com. It's a huge article, but if you want to know what's going on and you want it digested, this is as small as it boils down to.
Yeah, but it's just the fact that it's like you said, Paul, it's all over the place and disparate and difficult to know. And obviously somebody like Birgit has made it a mission to be involved in this community. And, she produces a weekly podcast about Gutenberg and about the way it's moving. And so this article just struck me as well worth surfacing, just because it's kind of everything in one post. If you want to know what's coming down the pipe, go and look at this article. In fact, just go and share it with everybody in WordPress, because we all need to know what's coming. And although it's a fairly lengthy read, a lot of it is links to other stuff. But if it piques your interest, make sure to give Birgit a thumbs up. Can I just say something which is a little bit weird, and I wasn't planning to say? I'm actually doing a podcast interview with Josepha Hayden Champosi on Thursday. Now she's the executive director of WordPress, the WordPress project, and so what she thinks and what she says matters. If anybody's got any questions that you want me to ask her, particularly around the subject of full site editing, let me know. Either put them in the, I don't know, I put a thread in the WP Builds Facebook group earlier today, so go there and search it. It'll be fairly near the top. It's the most recent one I wrote. But, you know, I won't be speaking to her particularly frequently, so it's a bit of a one-shot deal. I'd like to ask her the right questions that people are interested about, especially around Gutenberg, the communication of Gutenberg, how it's launching, especially with full site editing, Muted to come, and what a minimal viable product for that looks like. So let me know, and I'll try to do my best to get as many of those questions to her as possible. Bernhard, Christina, anything on that, or should we move on?
Well, it's the Wild Wild West, and it's a good thing, and I hope they will find a way. And I'm very sure there will be always add-ons improving on whatever is there and ever exists in core, because there are so many use cases where WordPress is used nowadays. There will be always a playing field.
Christina, anything?
No, just I think just from my end, it's always trying to communicate to my clients about what's happening, because sometimes I hop on there, I'm like, what's this now? Like, where's that thing? Yeah. And so if I can't find it, that's one of the things I have to just kind of educate my clients. So I'm, I didn't know about this site, so I'm going to check out the site a little bit more. But with my clients, I have to do like quick videos for them. Like, this is how you do that thing that you were asking for. But I mean, I'm curious to see what their idea with front end, what that's going to look like in next year, 2 years. It goes back to our conversation with Elementor and all these price increases. If Gutenberg's going to be free, and I think we've talked about this way before when Gutenberg came out, was, are we going to need Beaver Builder and Elementor and all these, front end kind of tools? And so I'm just curious what Gutenberg will do. And so how much money, will we need it? Do we need to spend $1,000 a year for Elementor at some point, or any of these plugins?
The nice thing about an article like this is it's just somebody who's totally immersed in that. As I mean, she's probably really busy being immersed in all of that, but she's taken the trouble to then write it up so that people like you and I can just find this one authoritative source of how it stands at the moment. I don't know if she's going to update this if things change, but anyway, it's a nice piece. Actually, we were supposed to do a different piece next, but I'm going to change because it just fits better, I think, Paul. Hopefully that's all right with you. I'm going to go to the WP Rocket article. Man alive, if there was a company that had to have a fast-loading website, it had to be WP Rocket. I mean, there's just no excuses, is there? I'm just going to say, go to the article that I'm leading to is an explanation of how they built their new website, of which this is a blog post. But just go to the new WP Rocket website, right? Just go now, open up a new tab and go to wp-rocket.me. I am more or less guaranteeing that you've never seen a website load as quickly as that. And then just click around a bit. And
whoa, yeah.
Whoa is right. It's literally instant. So firstly, props to them. I know this can be done right. Put enough time and effort in and figure it all out. But still, I have never seen a site load as quickly as that. I've maybe seen ones that equal it, the likes of Google, but that is blooming fast. So this is a piece explaining why they chose to use Gutenberg to do it. How they made that decision, why they're actually a toss-up. It was a toss-up between developing something based upon ACF blocks or going with Gutenberg. It seems like quite a cost-intensive process because they had to develop 24 of their own unique blocks to satisfy what they wanted. I'm presuming most of that was presentational. They wanted things to be in a certain way and look this way and not that way. And obviously they had real constraints around it being as performant as possible. So this is an article which just explains how they did it, why they did it, what was involved. It's a big read. There's an awful lot in here explaining how they built their custom blocks and all of that sort of stuff. But the reason I wanted to surface this right now is if companies like WP Rocket are taking the initiative to flip to Gutenberg, and they, with their extensive experience, with their budget for this, if they can pull something off like this with the block editor, I mean, it's not the most revolutionary design you've ever seen, but still pretty impressive. I really like it. I actually don't use WP Rocket, but I was blown away with how quickly this site loaded.
My site using WP Rocket feels just as fast as this. I mean, not once you're going to the login or if you're checking out products, but
yeah.
I mean, that's caching. But it's important that the backend itself and the working on it is fast, and that's a great example where the future is at. But I mean, that's stuff that can be done in different ways. But it's great.
Yeah, it's fast, but also just fascinating to me that a company of this magnitude, that everybody's heard of these guys, they would decide to go to Gutenberg and build in that way. Quite interesting. Sean, are they sharing their blocks? I don't know. That would be a nice gesture, wouldn't it? If those 24 blocks were available to all of us. I don't know. Time will tell, but it's quick, man. It's quick, and it's built on Gutenberg. So anybody want to comment on that?
I use WP Rocket at the lifetime license. I use it for all of our sites. I do have a little bit of problems when it's trying to connect, when it's working with Cloudflare. They kind of tend to, have some issues working together, but I love it. I think it's a great tool. I use it all the time. So, but my site, I get under a second on my site. I use Beaver Builder. But again, it goes back to the concept of block editors and where they're going, at some point. Do we even need some of these page builders that we're using right now? But yeah, it's lovely. I mean, even now I'm looking at GT metrics on it, and that sucker, I mean, even the first paint, there's like one white block and then it's boom, it's completely filled in. So it's pretty astounding. It's
it is.
Good for them.
Yeah, that's it, right? It's just a total masterclass in pulling this stuff off. So sorry, Paul.
One of the things I wanted to say is that one of the ways they've got this website super fast is not just the tool they're using, whether it's Gutenberg or something like that. It's actually the design methodology that they're using. So they're very aware of what goes into the speed tests, the actual performance and that kind of thing. And they're doing everything right. They're using SVGs everywhere. They're not using big images unless they absolutely have to. So they're ticking all the boxes from all sorts of different angles. I'm a WP Rocket user. I love WP Rocket. It's been the most stable caching solution that I've used, especially, I can't remember what the most recent version was, but they added this JavaScript hack in there to some extent. I don't know if you probably all know who used it. And that really helped on the page speed scores. I actually was pretty inspired by this article and did a lot of work this weekend to try and see if I could recreate similar kind of scores and speeds with a Beaver Builder, some Beaver Builder pages, because one of the things that I'm doing as part of my new thing is not just building loads of websites anymore. I'm trying to look into helping people and companies make better websites. So I've been re-educating myself on this. This article is really interesting. And while I'm not on board with, the Gutenberg block editor for creating client type websites, and agencies I don't think by and large can get on board with that as well, I wanted to see if Beaver Builder was capable of producing such results. It turns out it is, but goes back to my point of you need to think about how you're designing things. In fact, Alex Kalinov, who is in the comments today, we were backwards and forwards all out through the weekend talking about this with Elementor and Beaver Builder and the block editor and performance and everything. But you do have to design in a way that you're aware of what the page speed scores are looking for. You're aware of what you're putting in that first block of content for the first paint and everything. And I did manage to get a Beaver Builder page using WP Rocket on a Run Cloud server with, I think it was a Volta high frequency server, loading in 200 milliseconds and scoring 94 on mobile and 99 on desktop. But I had to do some things with the images and stuff like that to achieve that. I also bought Perf Matters, which is another performance plugin. Perf Matters, I think it's something to do with...
it's Brian. Brian used to work, Brian from Kinster.
Used to be something to do with Kinster,
not from Kinster anymore, yeah.
And that plugin was pretty awesome as well in terms of doing some of the things that caching plugins don't tend to do. And my aim was to make sure I was getting a stable site and a fast site, scoring well as well. It was possible. If you can use the block editor, though, you will not have to mess around with those stability issues that you will if you're using a page builder like Beef Builder or Elementor. If you want those 90s top scores on Google PageSpeed, you've got to do some pretty hardcore caching and combining of files. Whereas the Gutenberg editor by itself pushes out a lot less code, a lot less files. So WP Rocket have done absolutely the right thing to choose this as their way to build a website. It makes absolute sense. If they were using something else, it would not make any sense to me. But it is possible to do it with those other tools, but you've got to work a lot harder.
I can sense Bernhard's got something controversial to say.
Well, this discussion about page scores always surprises me, because in the end it's about how fast the site is to interact with for the user. And if you take a look how bad Amazon ranks on all those testing tools, then they won't sell it back if it comes down to these metrics. It's an indicator, yes, but it's not the only thing, and it's suddenly nothing. Everybody should just scream, yeah, I need to screen 100%. No, you don't need it. And you don't need a CDN for every page if your customers are local, and you don't need all that fancy stuff if your site loads below 2 seconds and you're not Amazon or a huge whatever store. I don't care about it. It's about how fast users can interact, what you want them to do, and that's important, and not the last little bit of green on those testing tools.
Clients do look at those tools.
Is that you?
Though.
Sorry, Paul.
Then you have to educate them.
There's Paul sharing his ever so memorable URL on the screen. I'm not even going to try.
Easy to remember.
Funny.
I just was inspired to try, actually, because I was always I always know that the page speed scores are the hardest to get a green lights on. Yeah. And I was determined to see. And funny enough, Bernhard, you mentioned CDN. I got lower scores with a CDN, but clearly a CDN is a more responsible way to do things. So those scores are meaningless to the most part. But I turned off the CDN and I would gain like 7% more. It was ridiculous.
We got to press on because we've got 4 minutes to cover 2 articles, which we're not going to manage. So we'll move quickly on. Anyway, nice article, WP Rocket. We'll go to the Beaver Builder one. This is Paul's domain.
Yeah, super quick on this one to give Bernhard a couple of minutes on pods. This is just an article just flagging up that the quality of articles on the Beaver Builder blog for their user base has vastly improved in the last couple of months. So if you're a Beaver Builder user and you want long form tutorials about how to do some pretty complicated things with Beaver Builder, go and check it out, and you can find out some really good content on there, because the Beaver Builder blog was definitely falling behind on things like the Elementor blog in terms of Elementor showing you how you could build a full e-commerce website with Elementor. Now Beaver Builder seems to have noticed that kind of thing, and they're pushing out some amazing content. But this one's by a guy called Will Morris, who actually happens to, I think, be quite local to where I am, and I guess he's writing these articles for Beaver Builder when he's not designing wallpaper.
Oh, I feel there was a joke in there that I've missed. Oh, William Morris. Oh, okay. Is that what you meant?
It's a good one, hey? That's when you know when you get a reaction like that.
Yeah, yes. Sorry.
You know it's a good joke.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, William Morris, of course. Yes, yeah, I get it. I think you're right. I've seen a slew of their. In fact, I think it was only a couple of weeks ago we mentioned the fact that they were on a bit of hiring spree, weren't they? And maybe this blog content is one of them.
I think they're still hiring. I think they're hiring for a video creator, writers, video creator, if that's what you call it.
I saw that
for their
post
YouTube
and I
channel,
thought, that would be
tutorials, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So go check out their job section if they've still got some openings there.
Okay, and last but by no means least, this week we're going to unleash Bernhard to tell us all about pods, the power of pods.
Yeah, of course. We have released the beta version of 2.8, so go and check it out. Links, I think Nathan has added. There's a lot of stuff in it. It's I think that's stuff which has been talked about the last years and have been postponed for various reasons. People who follow it may be aware of it. Quickly to say, it adds a new admin interface, like editing your pod settings get vastly improved and based on React. We get the full support for Gutenberg. You get Gutenberg blocks for everything. You get like you have with ACF and a way to build out blocks without using any JavaScript or deal with all the messy stuff around it. Just a few lines of PHP to configure it. So that's very interesting for developers maybe. And it lays the groundwork for an sooner to come 2.9 release, where we can then iterate on loop fields. Like you can use similar stuff like now with our relationship fields, but then we have loop fields which are stored just in one field or just can be repeated on the same article without linking out. And to round it all up, Scott is working on the Pods Pro version, where you can give back to Pods and get his work for a very reduced amount of money. So like if you donate $60 a year to Pods via the friends, you get that a discount from his Pro offering. So like you get one user license for $15 a year. So it's just to give people an incentive to support Pods via the friends. I don't know, call it feature set or whatever. And then you get add-ons like he's working on an integration for Elementor, because the current integration done by the Elementor team is always broken. We have so many issues and so many support questions. Sadly, they aren't really responsive because they have so many customers to deal with. So
we spoke about that earlier. Yeah.
So I can understand it.
30,000 every 10 seconds, I think it was. Wasn't it?
Something like that.
So the best thing is just go check it out. Give us feedback, because the battery is still not stable, and don't use it on your live system, please. Just don't do it. It's a beta, and it's a real beta. It's not like a release candidate. Play around with it, report back what you're missing or whatever. You can do it via GitHub or just join our Slack channels, just the classical ways. I think that's it in a very brief and short answer.
Yeah,
Nathan can finish on time.
I will put the show notes. What we're looking at is it's over on training.ithemes.com. It's a 1 hour, and I think it's 1 hour 4 minutes or something like that, webinar with Scott, which explains what's going on. So, we've given you the 3-minute version, but if you want the 1 hour full version with all the bells and whistles, click on the link in the show notes and you will be able to find it. And from the horse's mouth, as they say. I have no segue from horses to anything else I wanted to say. I just want to say thank you very much to Paul Lacey. You're supposed to go nay at this point or something.
I'm trying to think of a joke, but I've given my daily quota of amazing jokes today.
I'd say you've used up.
I've got no more left.
I'd say you've used up 2021's assignment of quality gags. With that one.
No, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised.
Okay. I wait.
Nathan, there's just one plug there. I wrote a blog post on the
Please.
WP Elevation website, WPElevation.com, on offboarding. So the importance of onboarding, but even more important when you offboard somebody. So if you're
okay, thank you. If you want to drop that in our little private chat on StreamYard, I'll put it into the show notes so that people can read it. WP Elevation, you said. So find the WP Elevation link It'll be right at the end of the other links because we try to keep them in order. But yeah, thank you. Thanks for mentioning that. That's good. So, Paul, Lacey, we'll see you next week. Christina and Bernhard, thank you both for coming on. I'm sure I'll be sending you a link if you want to come on again. But yeah, we'll be back on Thursday for a podcast episode. We do this every Monday, and then we'll put it out every Tuesday. So we'll see you at some point very soon. Now we have the awkward bit of waving and saying goodbye and never quite knowing when it's going to end. Bye.